Consuming cannabis. There are many ways that cannabis can be consumed and enjoyed, but in this section, we only want to focus on the most common and easiest methods of consumption. We'll start with smoking and vaping, move on to cooking with cannabis, like making edibles. Then we'll discuss topical products, mention a few advanced methods, and then we'll end with a special discussion of CBD consumption. Remember, CBD on its own won't get you high, and is often used solely for health reasons. Smoking cannabis. Some of us may remember starting our relationship with cannabis by smoking with a bunch of friends. Often it was in the form of a joint, which is a self-rolled marijuana cigarette. Or you may have been passing around a pipe, or you may have been passing along a bong. There were even more creative methods, like making a pipe out of an apple or soda can. All of these devices, joints, pipes, and bongs, are very common ways of smoking marijuana. Generally, you take a bud, grind it or tear it apart in small pieces, and then roll a joint or put it in the pipe or bong. When you smoke cannabis, you should hold the smoke in for a few seconds, which starts your high. Smoking marijuana is one of the fastest ways to feel a high, and generally you will notice effects after about 5 minutes. And depending on the strain in your physical makeup, you can expect to be high for about 2 hours or a bit longer. You may feel effects in your head as well as your body. By the way, the pipe and bong images are courtesy of Peacemaker, who create wonderful and smart silicone products. They're easy to clean, easy to use, include a stainless steel bowl instead of having to deal with screens, and they have secure lids. Vaping. Vaping is done with a vape pen, which is a small battery-operated handheld inhaler that works with cannabis concentrate or liquid drops. It's a bit like smoking, but you inhale vapor instead of smoke, and some people think it's healthier than smoking. You can also hold multiple doses at a time in a vape pen, which makes it very convenient. Using tincture or drops. A tincture is liquid that is infused with active cannabis ingredients. It is often made with high-proof alcohol that evaporates, and you are left with potent drops that work well in an eyedropper. If you put a drop or two under your tongue and wait for about 30 seconds before swallowing, you'll feel the effect in about 15 minutes. Here's a quick story about tinctures or drops that may be especially useful for parents in our audience. Some of you may have heard the compelling story of a little girl named Charlotte who had severe epilepsy. Her parents, at their wits' end, contacted the Stanley brothers in Colorado, who had been developing some healthy hemp oil products, and they soon found a strain now called Charlotte's Web, which helped her condition immensely. Charlotte went from having a seizure a day to only having a couple seizures per year. So now we have a cannabis strain called Charlotte's Web, which is high in CBD and contains only traces of THC. It is now widely used to create hemp oil, which treats a number of conditions, including seizures. Sometimes drops are only sold to medical marijuana patients, and you should make sure to find out what the proportion of CBD is to THC, as there are some drops that contain THC and will get you high. One of the reasons that drops are popular is because they are discreet, easy to use, and it's easy to calculate a correct dose. If you're going to try drops, as with any cannabis product, remember that we suggest that you speak to a physician who specializes in cannabis. Cannabis edibles. Many people associate cannabis with smoking, but one of the fastest growing ways of consumption is via edibles. In simplest terms, an edible is food or beverage that has been infused with cannabis. If you're thinking pot brownie, that's a classic example of an edible. We'll go into cooking with cannabis and serving edibles a little later in the course, but here are some general guidelines for you when it comes to edibles. First, the experience is entirely different from smoking marijuana. When you smoke cannabis, you probably feel the effects in 5 minutes or less, and the sensation may be largely cerebral. With edibles, whether you are big or small, male or female, a devoted or casual user, it could take anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours to feel the effects. You just don't know until you try it. So we recommend going low and slow. Low dose, take your time, and don't add alcohol or other forms of marijuana or your effects will be heightened. And there's no need to rush. And some people feel like edibles give you more of a body high. We encourage you to make edibles an enjoyable experience. So as far as dosing goes, be conservative. I might even start with a 2.5 milligram serving of an appetizer and see how the rest of the dinner goes. If you'd like a higher dose, the next time try a 5 milligram dose in an appetizer and note how you feel. You'll find your right level as you increase your intake gradually. But again, above all, go low and slow when it comes to edibles. Remember, size doesn't matter. Just because you might be bigger doesn't mean your body needs more. And by the way, the effects last a lot longer too. They sometimes last from 4 to 8 hours. Topical cannabis. Let's turn our attention to cannabis topicals. Cannabis topicals are a relatively new area of cannabis consumption that is often heavily comprised or solely comprised of CBD. If you have aches, pains, and inflammation, topicals such as lotions, balms, oils, and transdermal patches may provide relief. So instead of reaching for a commercial analgesic for your arthritis or sports injury, for example, check with your doctor. He or she may direct you to topical cannabis. Advanced methods of consumption. Since this is an introductory course on cannabis, we aren't going to cover in much depth what I would call advanced methods of consumption. But you may hear people talking about shatter, wax, dab, hash oil, and smoking hash, all of which are designed for serious marijuana consumers, and some of which can be potentially dangerous, especially if you use butane or other solvents to create these advanced products. Of course, if you're curious about any of this, a little research on the web will tell you all that you want to know.